In his 3 decades serving as UAF's operations superintendent in the Facility Services Department, Darrin Edson has seen just about everything under the midnight sun when it comes to the maintenance of Alaska's flagship university campus. His nickname is fitting given that he revived the Nanook mascot program at hockey games in 1998 and wore the costume for a decade, an experience that he described to the newspaper as, quote, breathing through a straw while running in place in a sauna with sweat dripping down your face. But in fact, his bear persona dates back decades earlier to his experience in 7th grade wrestling. Bear has plenty of interests outside his work and mascot service, especially fishing, barbecue, and operating a mining claim out of the Steese Highway. He's looking forward to doing more of all three, as well as getting to spend more time with his family now that he's wrapped up his on-campus service. And Darrin, welcome.
Thank you.
First things first, because I imagine you get this a lot. How did you acquire your unique nickname?
Well, my mom and dad were school sweethearts back in Maine in a little school, and back there everyone played basketball. That was the big sport for high school and junior high school back then. So when we moved to Alaska, I was at the age where I go to 7th grade to Tanana Middle School, and they had a basketball team, and my dad was so excited for me to be an Eagle. He's like, I want you to try out for the basketball team. So I said, yeah, I was all excited, and the first practice, I learned how much running you have to do in basketball. And I was not hip to it at all. I was just like, this is not going to work. And I didn't want to break my dad's heart. So I went up and I asked the coach, Hanson, is there anything else I could do? And he said, well, you could be the manager. I was like, perfect. So I became the manager of the basketball team, had a blast, and that later that fall they started the wrestling, and I went ahead and tried out for wrestling. And of course, I've always been a real big guy, and Doug Norton was the coach, him and Mr. Whittingham. And they said I looked like a big bear out there just kind of batting these little kids around, and that's where it came. They just started calling me Bear, and I've had it ever since.
Well, it seems like it suits you, and it's funny that you called out Doug Norton and Mr. Whittingham, because they were still there when I came through Tanana a couple decades later, and still doing the same things.
Nice.
That's Fairbanks for you.
Well, I really sucked at wrestling, just so you know. I don't think I ever won a match once. There was a kid, Eric Caston, was a big guy at Ryan, and when we would wrestle, the two of us, the entire school would come, and everyone waited for that, and everyone would come off the stands and stand around the mat, and we'd put on a pretty good show, but he'd always get me. But yeah, it was just a remarkable time of life for sure.
You mentioned being from Maine. What brought you to Fairbanks originally?
So my dad was in the Army, and he got stationed up here, and we came up and did all that. We moved all the time, so.
And so was that your experience in middle school? Was that your first time here? I remember you saying you moved out and then came back.
Yeah, my first time was for middle school. We got here prior to middle school, went through a little bit of elementary, and then I went into middle school. And then on the end of about almost through the 8th grade year, we had to move and go to Georgia, I think is where we went next. And yeah, it was horrible. I remember my sister and I were crying, and mom and dad were upset that they were having to take us out of school early. And yeah, it was just... we did not want to leave Alaska, especially at school, because we had all those friends there, but yeah.
And when did you come back?
I came back the junior year of high school. I remember because I was going to play football, so I walked onto the football field and talked to the coach. Well, I'm not sure I can remember his name now. But I went and I walked up to him and said, hey, I just moved here on a Fort Wainwright, and I'd like to play football. He got all excited, and they got me all set up. And the first 3 or 4 practices, I didn't have a helmet. they didn't have a helmet to fit me, and I practiced anyways, and got banged up a lot because I didn't have a helmet. But and then about 3 weeks into it, I finally got a helmet. And after practice, a bunch of us players that lived on Fort Wainwright were playing a game out at base, basically kill the guy with the ball. Whoever had the ball was it, and you had to get him. And they all jumped on me and were trying to get me down, and the whole herd went down, and all of us heard a and it didn't hurt at first, but the pile landed and we were all laughing, and then when I went to get up, I found out it was mine that went, and yeah, I broke my leg. So we broke my leg in that horsing around game. So that was the end of my football career. Yeah.
So did you graduate here in town then?
Yep, I got to graduate at Lathrop. Yeah.
What year was that?
85.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. And from high school, what was your next step after that? Did you go to college at all, or did you go right into working?
No, I went right into working. Yeah, and Mrs. Stitham was the American literature teacher then. She's the only reason I graduated, because she wouldn't let me fail. She was awesome, and I hated school, and she knew it, but she held with me and pushed me, and she got me through it, so I graduated. So, and then I went right into work, and about a year or two out of school, I'd started a little business, a DME landscaping for Darrin Michael Edson Landscaping. And I was doing lawn installations and basically mowing maintenance business. I did that for, I don't know, few years. And I was buying soil from a place off of College Road called Cox Enterprises. And one day he said, "Would you like to work for us? Maybe I could talk you into not having your business, but come work for us and running equipment for us." And I had never run equipment at the time, so I got totally excited. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that for sure." And and that was the beginning of my career as an equipment operator. I took that job on, and he taught me how to run equipment and drive truck and all that stuff.
That's great. That's a good call out of Susan Statham. I actually am still in a book club with her. I'm going to see her in May, actually, later this
Oh, wow. All right. Well, tell her I said hi. Okay.
What was your kind of high school experience like in Fairbanks in those days? Did it feel like a different place than it is now, or was it a lot the same?
No, I don't think it was a different place. I guess, yeah, a lot of things have changed. But so I was this big guy, but I was pretty docile. My whole life I've been a big guy, but not very mean, I guess. So all the kids hung around me. A lot of kids that maybe got picked on or weren't very liked by other kids kind of hung out with me. And I think I was their guard or whatever. But they all felt safe with me. So looking back, that's what I know happened. And which was fantastic. I had some great friends, but everyone in school got along with me, and there was another great big guy, a Samoan kid named Tafa, and I remember that him and I, for fun, we would walk down the hallway together, and we would walk together in the middle, and the crowd would go like this around us it was like this constant wave down the hallway. But he was super nice too. He was really a good guy, and he was going to play football as well that year, so the coach was just beyond himself. And then I broke my leg, and then I think he just got out of it, didn't want to do it. So, but yeah, I know high school was the same. I got to come back and graduate or be with kids for 2 years that I was at Tanana with, so it was super cool.
That is cool. You mentioned Susan Statham, but did you have other mentors or role models in your youth? And are any of them still around?
Well, it's a lot more than there was. The auto shop teacher at Lathrop at the time was Mr. Derrickson, and he was a person who took me under his wing and taught me how to weld and do a bunch of things, and yeah, I'm not real good with names, but I mean, I see them all the time. So
You mentioned, you know, the auto body shop and kind of being taught how to weld there. Was that kind of your the genesis of your kind of career trajectory in terms of like wanting to work in, you know, something that where you got to kind of work with your hands and kind of be more hands-on with things?
yeah, I think so, because he had a really neat way of teaching. He wouldn't just have us work on little projects in the shop. He would actually, through friends or maybe people he had sought out, but they would bring construction equipment or dump trucks in, and we would do work on those and weld on those and get to talk to the owners and the operators of the equipment. And I always thought that was really, as I got older and understood, for them to put that trust in him as a teacher and these high school kids to do this work, you know, I think is fantastic. And I also went to Hutchison, and I know the Hutchison's, the welding teacher there's name was Jesse, and he was the same way, super nice person, and we would work on a lot of equipment and actual things that are out in the world, not just welding on pieces of metal. Yeah, so I think that was it. It was seeing that you could be helpful, learning this trade and skill, and being helpful for other people.
I looked at your resume and there was a line on there that kind of jumped out at me just because it's sort of unique to this place and a specific time in Alaska's history. You worked at Mark Air. What was that like?
Awesome. Awesome. My wife and I met at Mark Air, and I'll tell you what, if Mark Air hadn't went out of business, I'd still be working there. The pay was not great, but it was the absolute funnest time of my life working for Mark Air. We saw so many things, and we were a part of so many things that went on. The airport's an amazing place to work. You see so many things out there. We probably would be thrown in jail today to do this. But one time we had to clean the planes when they were here overnight. So we worked on the late shift, and Mark Air always had the Haagen-Dazs ice cream. And we had freezers full of them at home because when the flights were done, they'd say, you guys take these home. And we got sick of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. But the coolers had dry ice in them. So us guys thought, man, it would be really funny. We'll get a bucket of water and we'll put the dry ice in the bucket of water in the back bathroom of the jet. And then we'll call the maintenance guys and we'll say, holy hell, there's smoke coming out of this plane. Well, turns out that wasn't that funny. We thought it was just going to be a couple of our maintenance guys in their pickup pull up, but everybody came. The fire trucks were there. The police cars were there. We were like, oh, my Lord. And they all took it pretty well. You know, the mechanic got on there, ran down there, and he pulled out the bucket, and he was, you know, said a lot of words to us. And then the firemen were kind of angry because we had gotten them up out of what they were doing to come down for that. But, I mean, if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably do it again. So it was absolutely phenomenal.
I mean, it's a good story. You mentioned meeting your wife there. How did that happen?
Well, you know, with the counter girls were always up front, and I had worked there a couple years before you. I think a couple years before Laura showed up, and we had a lot of new counter girls, and I never paid attention to any of them. And then one day I walked through, and and I walked through, and she was in the back doing her you know, the paperwork or the computer work before she had to start work. And I remembered she caught my eye, and then I was just like, hey, who's this new girl? Who's this new girl? And then I just kept picking on her until I got to ask her out on a date.
That wasn't actually our first time we met.
No. So honestly, the year before, the mascot wasn't my first costume wearing job. For years, I had a really nice Santa Claus suit, and I would do Santa Claus at Christmas. I'll tell you about that in a second. But their family had lost her grandpa that summer, that fall. And her uncle knew me, and he said, would you come out to our house at Christmas Eve as Santa Claus and give some gifts to the family because they lost their grandpa and it would mean a lot. And I said, sure. So Laura and I on our wall at home have a picture of her sitting on my lap the year before we started dating, and we didn't know each other at all, but we met kind of that way. An interesting part of that is her uncle didn't tell me that her grandmother had a dog named Duke. Was it Duke? Yeah, so I pull in the driveway and sneak into the garage like he told me to, and swear to God, I shut the door of the garage, it's completely dark, and I hear, and I'm in a Santa suit, and I'm like, oh my God, what? And it just got louder because it was getting closer, and I'm like, oh no. And then finally the kitchen door opened into the kitchen, and I heard somebody say, Duke, get over here. And then we went in, and I did all the present giving away and got to meet Laura, kind of.
How long did it take you guys knowing each other at Mark Air before you kind of figured that connection out?
Yeah, it wasn't that long before we figured it out, yeah.
Sounds good. The vast majority of your career was spent here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. What initially brought you to UAF, and what made you stay for nearly 3 decades? Or actually, more than 3 decades by just a little bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, 31 years. Well, Mark Air had decided to do what it was going to do. And I actually got to marshal the last jet out of Fairbanks. The jet landed, we received it, we had unloaded it. We're putting people on the plane, and we got a call in the office. And that call was the call. They were telling us that Mark Air was shutting down immediately, that there would be no more flights. Load these people up on the plane and get them back to Anchorage, and then that would be it. So, of course, we all thought it was a joke, like somebody was messing with us. It ended up not being. But I marshaled that plane out, and that was it. We went down and we cleaned up. We spent a couple days helping clean up, but then we found out we weren't getting paid, so most of us were moving on. And the state of Alaska it was a pretty big hit, so the state of Alaska had set up a special program for us all, and we could go down to the unemployment office and get signed up. And I remember standing in line. There was probably 25, 30 people there. And of course, I was young and full of energy, and I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm just going to go get a job. I'm not going to worry about it. So I got out of line, and I went home. And Laura's dad, my father-in-law, he worked here for 36 years? 37 years as a plumber here at UAF. And he said, they're doing a job up there. They're redoing the cables and curtains at the Davis Concert Hall. And if you want to come up, you could help us out for a few days. And I was thinking about going fishing, but I'm like, yeah, I'll come up and help. And that was it. I never left. I came up here, and I had a blast helping them take down all those cables. And you wouldn't believe how many cables there are. But we took all the 1/4-inch cable down and all the curtains and put new curtains up. And then everyone was gracious and just really good people. And, they just put their arm around me, and they're like, hey, we could use one of you around here. And I said, well, I got nothing going on. So I worked temporary for about a year, maybe 9 months, something like that. And then I was able to get on full time.
You kind of steadily advanced up, I guess, the ladder of operations here. And I mean, you don't strike me as somebody who's exactly a ladder climber. So what was that experience like as you kind of, keep looking around, and eventually you're sort of at the top of the pyramid in terms of folks who are doing your job?
Yeah, a couple things I'm real proud of here is that I never applied for any of these leadership jobs. I never sought it out. I never went after it. I was just moved into those positions, and then that just kept happening. I started out as a laborer and driving the garbage truck, which I could write a book on those. There's a lot of stories there. But Laura and I have a son, Brandon, and he was in competitive hockey at the time. And, you didn't get paid a lot to run the garbage truck at UAF back then. So I started up a mowing company for extra money, Bear and Son this time, mowing company. And Brandon was 3 or 4. And one of my favorite things was I'd go and mow the lawn for the folks, and then I'd have Brandon take the bill up to the door. And we always got paid. Everyone always loved that. There was never the, can I get you next week or anything. This little guy was handing them the bill, and they were like, oh. And so we had that going on, and I was on the garbage truck and running that company as well. So we had a couple kids working for us, and we'd work on the weekend and at night and all that. And the superintendent of operations at the time, we noticed, I thought he was stalking me because I'd see him. I was like, I swear he's following me. Like I'd see him at night, and on the weekends he'd drive by the places we were working. And then one day he called me into the office and he said, hey, I would like you to consider taking over the university grounds, to take care of the grounds university. And I said, well, I'm going to have to talk to my wife about it. That's a lot. You know, we, on top of all our other clients, you know, that do the university and work here. He's like, no. He said, no, I don't want you to do it with your company. I want to hire you to be the groundskeeper for the university. I was like, oh, okay, that's different. Okay, let me talk to my wife. So I went home and told Laura, and we talked it over, and it, you know, basically came down to money, and it was a better deal. So I came in and told him yes, and then that's when that started, right? And we tried to run our other business, Bear and Son Lawn Maintenance, for maybe 6 months after that, and it was way too much to do it here all day and then try to do it at night. So we just kind of, there was Fred Scott Enterprises was starting up at that time as well. And Fred and I became good friends, and we'd always meet at the same gas stations, fueling up. And I just said, hey, Fred, I'm going to step out. And he took over basically all of our clientele, and it was a happy ending for everybody, I guess.
Good. When it comes to people's jobs, I feel like even as you kind of hop back and forth between one career field and another, there's often kind of a through line that traces its way, you know, something that I guess drives you a little bit. You know, for my work, I used to be a journalist, and now I work in the borough mayor's office. But I think the fundamental line there is kind of curiosity about the way things work and wanting to be close to sources of information. What I guess is that drive for you that kind of went through your career was what kind of.
I think it's, for me, it's service. It's taking care of people, and I like to be able to do what I do and allow other people to be free to do other things. Or it's so fun to do something for somebody that they can't do, or they don't have the ability to do, either financially or physically, and then be able to provide that service for them. And make it happen for them. And for here at the university, a lot of that is financial with departments. You know, a lot of departments didn't have the money to pay for setups for events. And when I got up to that point in my career to where I started making those kinds of decisions and organizing those kinds of jobs to be done, my feeling was that the legislature gave the university money to cover wages and benefits. And the way I read that meant, okay, well then I'm going to do whatever the university needs because these guys are paid anyways. So I might as well make them productive. And that little lady back there, whenever she needed something done, I would just say, yeah. I mean, I never said no. I'd always say, yeah, we're going to do it. Well, let's make it happen. And I never really got in trouble. I got a lot of these, like, don't you do that again. But, you know, a lot of the events are on the weekends. You know, I never paid attention to overtime. I just went for it, and we made it happen. And I think that the positive things that we did for the university, because that was worth it. We're not going to, you know, how am I going to tell all these students that they can't have a concert on campus because our guys can't get the chairs moved around fast enough? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to make it happen. So we did. And, you know, for me, to answer your question is just making people happy and seeing them smile and enjoying themselves. And whether it's doing something at their home or doing something here at the university, that's what it was all about for me.
I find that, you know, when Michelle asks you to do something, it's usually best to just say yes right away. But you're eventually going to say yes anyway, and you may as well spare yourself some time.
I'm not going to deny with you. I'm not going to deny that at all, yeah.
This is a big campus, and maintaining it is a big job. You know, are there people who, you know, in your time here who really kind of stood out as kind of people who really made that job easier for you?
Absolutely. When it was handed over to me, we had myself was the only full-time employee, and I had about 15 students, and it was a very, very fast steep learning curve, but it happened really fast. And at that time, the management above me, they were all taking part of this organization called APA, which is it's just a big American national-based group that unites all these colleges and universities together, all of their facilities, services, management teams, and they all kind of learn from each other and build, and they set standards on what they would like everything to meet: custodial, grounds, electrical work, plumbing work, HVAC. So they were really getting into APA, and they were coming back from all these, there was me and 15 kids, and they were coming back with all these requests, like, we want to jump up to level 3 APA maintenance on campus. Well, to do that, we need like 55 people. We don't have it. We don't, for the square footage, we just didn't have the people. And slowly we started getting the people. We got a couple full-timers, and we bought a couple new pieces of equipment, and then we were off to the races. And we had some of those people are still working here in facilities. Some of those people had kids, and those kids came back and worked for me at the university. It's a big family. That's another thing I'm super proud of, is that everyone that was ever attached to the operations team is a family. They're all welcome at our house. Laura and I open our house up to them, and I'm not sure I don't want to say names because I don't want to leave anybody out, but there was a lot. Everyone who worked for me is family, and I've always treated them like that and always will.
I was reading a policy paper last week in which you were interviewed about responding to the Ice-Mageddon incident with freezing rain the day after Christmas in 2021. I'm sure many people in this room were here and remember that too. What are some of the most memorable events that you had to deal with as part of your job?
Well, a couple of those are ones. The ones that stick out for me are when there was really something bad happening to campus, and the teams came together, and not even by request. They came together because they all knew something was happening, and they came in and we got it taken care of. The ice storm was a big one. We had a guy named Casey Stagno who basically lived upstairs over the shop for like a week. We couldn't not stop running the sand trucks. We had two. They would constantly break down, so the mechanics were in here at all hours of the night, 7 days a week, and we were the hills and slopes of campus were so bad that we had to back the sand trucks up these hills just so we could get the sand on the hills. We couldn't drive down them because we'd lose control of the truck. So Casey was there. A lot of other equipment operators and people, our hand crews, everybody was out. We, when I first started doing this, we didn't go through any salt at all. We never used salt on campus. Mm-hmm. And now we use, we probably use 14, 15 ton a year of salt trying to keep up with it, except for this past winter, where it was pretty decent. We didn't have a lot of moisture this past winter, so it wasn't that bad. But every winter, for about 10 years before that, it got really ugly. And I have to remember, I always tell them kids, but in the fall, I bring them all together and I say, look, remember, I know this gets, you guys do this over and over and over again. They go out every single day and shovel the same steps every single day and ice them every single day and take care of them. But if one person falls on one of those stairs and hits their head and gets paralyzed or something super, super bad happens, the cost of us doing what we do is nothing compared to what it's going to cost the university to take care of that person, and the pain and suffering that person is going to go through is not even a drop in the bucket to what it takes us to do what we do. So, I just always had to instill in them that it's super important, and it's challenging. we'll get a big snow and we'll go out and clear everything, and then we'll have people calling, and it's snowing at the same time. So we have people calling saying, why haven't you guys been here to get our stairs yet on this building? Or like, well, we were there at 7 o'clock, but we'll be there again tomorrow morning. You know, we have to try to get everything every single day. I forgot what the question was.
Just memorable events throughout your career.
One sticks out. It was in the summer. We're all mowing lawns and everyone's doing their thing. And a call came on the radio that a child was missing up at Hess Village. And not just my department, the entire facility services. Everyone dropped what they were doing. Everyone. And the entire facility service, no one asked. The entire facility services team showed up at Hess Village. And we all made a line, you know, it must have been 200 yards long. And we all started walking through the woods. We'd walk north, and then we walked west. And we ended up, it was a little girl, and she was actually in other people who live in Hess Village. She was in their house. She had met their daughter, and the girls had went in to play. But none of the moms and dads knew. So they couldn't find her, and they thought that she had wandered off. But that one stuck out because every single person's goal was to find that kid. And it didn't matter what we walked through. It didn't matter if it was bushes or bogs or mud. Nobody complained. Everyone helped each other. And it was really something special to see that focus come together, and everyone, there was no managers or supervisors and custodians and equipment operators. We were all people from facilities trying to find that baby girl. And that always has stuck in my head. Like, in every emergency we've ever had, fires and floods and ice and snow, it's those things that I remember the most about the teams that have worked for me or that I have worked with, is that none of them shied on all that. Every one of them were here to kick butt and get this place ready to go.
For the record, on your previous discussion of winters and maintenance of the roads, you're the first person who I have talked to who has described this past winter as not that bad. How did you come to be a mascot for the Nanooks?
So I met Laura, and her family, they all loved going to hockey games. So I kind of jumped in with them, and we would go to the Nanook games. And there was a young man doing the mascot at that time. And we all sat in the same seats every single time. And there was this little community of people where we were sitting. And then one year, whatever year it was, I can't remember, but we went and there was a hole, like there was no mascot. And our little boy was, probably 2.5, 3 years old. And it really bummed me out. And that wasn't there. It was just something that was missing that was normally there. It's like having cake and ice cream every year for your birthday, and then there's just cake. And you notice it, like something's missing. So I went down and I talked to Ken Larimore, who was the equipment manager at the time. And I said, I would like to volunteer to become the mascot if that was possible. And he said, yeah. So, except I'm 6'4" and the mascot suit was about 5 foot. So that wasn't going to happen. And I started a fundraising drive. I went to businesses, not one business in town except one said no, which I won't say who that is. But every single business I went to was over the top, ready to donate. So Laura and I fundraised for about, I'd say, a couple of weeks. And then the Face Off Club made up the difference, whatever it was, I can't remember. And we ordered a professional mascot suit from this place in Colorado. And I'll never forget the day it got delivered to us. It came with this huge travel box. And it was ginormous, and I was just like, oh man, this is like the big time. This thing is amazing. And I put it on at our little apartment. I pull it on, and you go from like your normal temperature to like 107 immediately. And I'm like, oh man, this is really going to be hard to do. But I loved every single second of it, and super proud. Yeah, we did it. We built it all from scratch and back up, and the mascot, my co-rider on the garbage truck at the time, Ted Hetrick, he could fit in the old one. So he said, I'd like to come with you, and we could do bad bear and good bear. And so we tried that for a little bit, and it stuck. The crowd loved it. It enabled us to work both sides of the Carlson Center at the same time. And when we were doing deliveries and promotions, it was just a lot of fun to have us both there to play with people. And the mascot program actually is a whole nother book there too. There was we got to meet the real Spider-Man when we were doing the Top of the World basketball tournament one time. They had brought up, someone from the comic company had sent up Spider-Man. Well, when we walked into the room where we had to share this dressing room with these other mascots, Ted and I are, just like I am now, and we walk in and we're getting undressed to get dressed, and this man comes in who's absolutely perfect, gym perfect body, and he's like, what are you guys doing? We're like, we're the mascots. And he's like, no, I'm the mascot. And I'm like, well, we're the school's mascots. And he's like, okay, I just wondered why you're getting undressed in here. It's just like, well, we're the mascots. But that guy was as close to a real spider as you could imagine. He was weird. Like, even in the locker room, he would jump up on the lockers and do the poses on the lockers with nobody else around but Ted and I. And we would look at each other like, what is this guy doing? And I don't think he wanted to come out of the persona or something. He was just in it. And he was amazing. He would rappel out of the rafters down on a rope and stop a few times and hang upside down. And he would jump off tables. And I remember Ted and I thinking, I think that's really him. Like, we kept looking on his wrist for holes. Like, I think that's the real Spider-Man. This guy was unreal. Another funny mascot story is they had the Seattle Supersonics mascot come up here, and he would do all kinds of stuff. But one of the things, he'd put this trampoline out there, and he'd run with the basketball and jump on the trampoline and dunk the ball. So it was a break time, and they had this great big curtain like we do for the commencements up. And then behind the curtain was where all the stuff happened, like where everybody, all the dance teams and cheerleader teams got ready. Well, that trampoline was in there. And I told Ted, I said, I'm gonna try that trampoline. I want to see if maybe I could dunk the ball. And Ted's like, Bear, you're too heavy. That thing's not going to lift you up off the ground. And I was in the mascot suit, and there was all kinds of kids there, getting ready to go out and put on a show of some sort. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to try it. And I remember jogging. I didn't really get up any real speed, but I was jogging. It's that light comes on like, this might not be a good idea. And let me tell you what. That trampoline threw me about 17 feet. Yeah. I hit that damn thing, and I shot out of it, and I remember screaming, and the bears were like, ah! And these kids were all moving out of the way, and I hit the ground and rolled, and the head came off, and everyone came over and said, are you okay? Are you okay? And I couldn't even speak for 5 minutes. I was just like, oh. So I decided right then I'm never touching a trampoline ever again. I was the good bear. I was the huggy bear. I gave everybody bear hugs and lifted them up off the ground. And yeah, I was the good bear. The kids loved me. They hated Teddy. The teenagers all picked on Ted, which was good. I think I was, I'm a big guy anyways. And then you put on the suit and you got another 18 inches of you up there, So none of the high school kids bothered me. The teenagers didn't bother me. But boy, they picked on Ted a lot. And I just told him, that's because you're always mean to him. You got to be better,
Talking to people who have been mascots before, one thing that I've been told is that, it's kind of a liberating experience because nobody knows it's you. I mean, except for people who know that you're the mascot. But like anybody who you encounter is encountering you as the mascot, so you can kind of be a whole different person. Was that something that you appreciated?
Yeah, I'm. People don't believe it, but I'm really an introvert. I really don't like to be Like when I go home, I want to be home. And I mean, I like helping people, but I don't like being out front and, I'm an introvert. But the mascot allowed me to do all that and not really be bothered by it because I knew it wasn't me doing it. And I love kids. I mean, you can see on that picture, I love kids, always have. So I was able to hug kids, and I bet I took 1,000,000 pictures with families and kids, and it was just a super good time. So nothing but good experiences with the mascot. It was amazing.
What would you say were the best and worst parts of performing that role?
Well, there was times when we'd do a volleyball game at like 3 o'clock, and then we'd do a basketball game at 5, and then we'd run over the Carlson Center and do a hockey game. And after the hockey games, poor Laura, my wife, would be waiting for me. And I'd get in there and sit on the bench, and I wouldn't move for like 30 minutes. I was so sore and so soaking wet. And so sometimes it was just keeping up with the schedules. When we would do, we would do birthdays and events downtown and stuff for the borough, stuff for the school districts. We'd go to classrooms. It was and all volunteer. Like, we never got paid for any of it, which I'm proud of. That's not what we were doing it for. So that was the tough part. All the rest was the best part. Oh, except one time. The first Golden Days parade we did, this was back when we were lining up on Fort Wainwright. And back before we had the Bearmobile. And Ted and I decided that we're not going to ride on the float. We're the mascots. We're going to walk. We're just going to walk and shake hands. Let me tell you what, that was horrible. By the time Laura and I had an old motorhome, Winnebago, and we had parked it at the Carlson Center parking lot, or wherever the end it was at the time. And I honestly remember seeing white dots. By the time we got there, we were almost done. Like, I think heat stroke was about to happen. We stumbled our way through the crowd. I could just see the Winnebago, and I was like leaning and just falling and moving my legs to get there. And I took the head off, and I could literally see dots and black dots, and I was just like, this might be it. This is it. But we never did that again. We rode on the float from then on.
The mascot program seems like it's still going strong. Do you feel like a proud father when you're at a UAF event and there's mascots there?
Yeah, I don't know about the father part, but I do feel proud that I was part of keeping it going. And when I was done, my brother-in-law, Jeff Stahl, he took over. So Jeff Stahl, when we were doing it, Popeye's Chicken was in town, and Jeffrey was Popeye at all the hockey games. And a lot of people stepped in for me when we would go away for hockey games for our son. But my brother-in-law was the main one who really liked doing it. So when I stepped down, Jeffrey stepped up, and he took it to another level, and he went to mascot Olympics one time and represented UAF there and did that kind of thing. So, and then finally it got to a point where Jeffrey was getting older as well, and it was tough to do. So he kind of stepped away from it. And then we gave a class. They opened it up for students as a student position. And then we had this, Jeffrey and I and Ted all met these students that were going to take turns being the mascot. We gave them all kinds of tips, and don't go in the back alleys of the back hallways of the Carlson Center. That's bad. Stay out of there, because that's where all the teenagers hang out. Stay out front, and just little tricks of the trade. And when Guy Godowski was here, it was always impressive to Ted and I. We all shared the same green room at the Carlson Center. And those coaches all just swigged scope all the time. Constantly. They had great big, I've never seen bottles of scope so big in my life. That's what those guys had back there, and they didn't want bad breath, I guess. And Ted and I brought in pickled eggs one time. So we brought in pickled eggs, and they were all back there talking and figuring out how they're going to win the hockey game, and we were just sitting there eating pickled eggs, watching them. And they said, what are those? We're like, they're pickled eggs, So they were all trying them, and then they'd take a pickled egg and eat it, and then they'd go clean their mouths and spit it on the sink. And They won that night. And Guy after the game, he's like, you guys have to bring those every night now. Every single night. And so we did, that was a Friday night. Saturday night, we brought pickled eggs, and they won that night. But the next Friday night, they lost, and then he said, okay, don't bring those anymore. So.
That's great. Families come up quite a few times as we've been talking here, and we've talked mostly about your career, but I mean, it strikes me that your family is really important to you. And what kind of a role has that played in your life and your career, and has that changed over the years?
Well, there's a gentleman sitting right here that was part of my family, still part of my family from the Mark Air days. I think every job I've ever had in my life, my big belief in what I teach as many kids that will listen is you need to get as many friends as you can in life. Friends, family, however you want to look at it, but you need friends because there are times in life when all of us are not going to be stellar. All of us are going to need help. We're going to be in a situation, and you need to have people you can call and not have to worry, and you could stay at their house, or you can borrow some money, or you can get a ride or whatever. And I've always thought that the most important thing is to be friendly with people and get to know them. And most everyone that I worked with at Mark Air, we're still super good friends. Everyone that's ever worked for me at the university, it's the same thing. And of course, my real family, yeah, we're super tight. So.
Good to hear. You're a gold miner now, and also a little bit of a reality TV star. How did you get into mining?
Well, let's back up on the gold miner part. Or I guess we could say gold miner. We just can't say successful gold miner yet. This will be the year, though. It was just something that's been in the back of my... I had an uncle who lived in Kenai, and Uncle Basil, we would drive down there when my parents lived here. We'd drive down to Uncle Basil's, and he was a gold miner. And he showed me how to pan. And back then I was young enough that it really didn't catch. But it was in there, you know. And then times in my life, things would come up with gold mining, and I'd always be a little interested. So, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was done with the mascotting, and I was done doing some other things I was doing, and I was looking for something to do, so I thought, well, I'll just start gold panning. And so I was making I liked making homemade stuff. So I would make homemade sluice boxes and all kinds of rocker boxes, and I think I had more fun doing that than anything. But then I'd take it out to Pedro's Monument, and we'd go to town, and, you know, we'd find gold every weekend. And then I met a person who owned a gold mine up in Central, and he had invited me to come up there. He said, you can come up and do what you want and keep everything you find. And so my nephew and I went up there, and we had an absolute blast. And Daryl said, you know, you're welcome to come back anytime. And so I did a couple times, and then he pulled me aside and he said, hey, my wife and I are going to go, and we're going to stake this other creek. And we'd like to know if you would like to do that. And I said, well, let me ask my father-in-law first, because that seemed like a lot of work. So I got on the phone, or I went to Harold and talked to Harold and said, would you like to be a part of a gold mine? And he's like, yeah. So we brought, Harold and I were older. So we asked my brother-in-law as well, because he was younger, because we needed younger. And yeah, we went up there and staked. We started with 40 acres, and now we have 9 40-acre claims. And yeah, and they about killed us staking them. We definitely need young people for that, because it was horrible. So we have just been learning the whole time. We started with handmade stuff to, you know, some store-bought stuff. We got a suction dredge. We went through a summer with that. Then we needed to move more dirt, so we bought a backhoe. And about 3 years ago, there was an advertisement on Facebook that Discovery Channel Mine Rescue was looking for miners that needed rescuing. And I was just like, well, we fit that bill perfectly. So I typed up the letter and sent it off, and we did countless Zoom meetings with them and interviews, and over a 3-year period. And the year before last, it was supposed to happen. We got all excited, and then they had to pull the plug because of financing. And so this past year, when they were getting excited and ramped up again, I didn't really know to believe them or not, but I went along with it, and we did everything, and sure enough, it happened. They came, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing to experience. I'll never forget it. And they provided us knowledge, and they looked over our mine claims and told us where we should be, what we should be doing. They built us this really beautiful wash plant. We could do about 4 yards an hour. Now we can do about 30. That's the difference of the wash plant. And they give it to us like it's ours. We didn't get paid for the show, which I should have because I was adorable. But we didn't get paid for the show, but we got to keep that. They did all the labor. They fed us. Yeah, it was amazing.
So you've answered this a little bit in that answer, but I guess how true to life are the things that you see on the show versus what actually happened? Is it pretty faithful, or is there stuff that was made up for drama's sake, or?
No, they don't ask us, they don't give us a script. They want us to be ourselves. The toughest thing about the whole deal was they were there filming us for about 2.5 weeks, and we couldn't do anything when they weren't there. Like, they want everything available for them to film. So there was days when we would sit there for the whole day. They'd call us and say, we'll be down in 45 minutes. We'll be down in such and such. And they never showed up. And then one would drive down about 7 o'clock at night, say, hey, we're going to take it up in the morning. Like, so we drank a lot of coffee. We talked a lot. But no, most of it, at least on that show that we were on, it's the real deal. Like, those guys worked their butts off. They built that entire plant from scratch right there on site in that short a time period. And they do really they're super nice people, and the whole experience was amazing.
That's good to hear. I have heard varying things about different shows, so it's good that those folks were more or less on the level. And is this mine more of a hobby or a retirement project for you, or are you planning on striking it rich?
Well, I wanted to just have, like, those little backhoes you pull behind a four-wheeler and you sit on it and you dig, and that's about what I was looking for. And then now we have to buy a big excavator, and now we're hauling lots of fuel up there. And so we started out as a hobby for fun, then we went into kind of a serious hobby, and now we are Lazy Bear Mine LLC. We weren't before this year, but this year we're going to be producing and working enough that we need to do that. So we're a legit mining company now, and we're headed up there Saturday, and we have some stuff to do around, maintenance things to do around camp and get things going, but we'll probably be washing rocks within 3 days and putting to work all of the knowledge and tricks and things that they told us, so we should do just fine.
Well, you strike me as somebody who's probably not too disappointed that you're getting to be back into heavy equipment operating again.
Oh, no, I love that. No, and it's Lazy Bear Mine for a reason. Our mine's the only place in Alaska where naps are mandatory after lunch. Yeah.
We're pretty close on time here now, I think, but I did have one last question, which is, if you encountered a younger version of yourself or somebody with similar interests, what's the advice that you would give them based on your life experience?
Oh, I absolutely can tell you, invest. I would tell them to put the most percentage that they could into their retirement investments and let it roll. Don't mess with it. When I went for my PERS counseling for our retirement, when I was getting ready to retire, the lady told me about the PERS high interest savings loan, and she wanted to know how much funds out of that I would like to be distributed when Laura and I retired. And I said, well, what's that? And she's like, well, you could have been putting money in here for 30 years and making 12% interest or 8%, whatever it was. It was a high interest rate, and I didn't know anything about it. So I think if I could go back and talk to the younger myself, I'd say really look into the investments, because you're a young person, and just like that, you're going to be retiring, and you'll have all this saved up, and compound interest will be working for you, and do that. That's what I would say.
I lied, I have one more question. You have been in Fairbanks for essentially your entire adult life, and it seems like this is a place that suits you. What is it about Fairbanks that I guess makes it your place?
Well, I think it's absolutely the people. I I love the people here in Fairbanks. I think I'm familiar with it, and it's home for me. But mostly, I mean, all those things wouldn't matter if everybody was not friendly. So it's definitely the people. That's where I want to be. Now, that all being said, that little guy up there, the smallest one, that's our grandson, Cairo. And if he moves, Papa and Jam are moving too. So we'll stay here as long as he does now. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, thanks so much for sharing your life with us, and also thank you for wearing your dress Carhartts. I can tell.
Yes, they're brand new. Yeah.
My dad is also a wear Carhartts all the time to every occasion, so
Yeah, I actually had dirty ones on earlier today, and Laura made me change them. So.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.